Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello and welcome back to the channel where you join me in beautifully sunny California, which, if everything is to be believed, is leading the charge to electric vehicles. However, we're going to get to this a little bit today because it might be a little bit of a disaster if any of these objectives are going to be met. Today we are driving in the Rivian R1T. Now, Rivian have very kindly lent us the electric pickup, which we've been using, and having driven nearly 1,000 miles with it already, have plenty of good things to touch on the car, a really seriously good first effort at launching a new vehicle. But, and there's a lot to touch on. And I know, Tesla guys, please hold fire. We're going to get to that a little bit later on. I know, talking about different charging infrastructures, different countries around the world, but I want to tell you what my experience has been like here and dive a lot more into this car. We're going to go through the first impressions, tell you all about it, and all about where I think the EV charging infrastructure kind of needs to go if we have any hope of this working. Firstly, some good things about the Rivian. Now, you have to remember, this is Rivian's first car. They have come charging out of the blocks, pun intended, with something that's really well thought out and put together. This being the R1T, has the pickup, the flatbed at the back. The R1S gives you the closed off rear, more of an SUV. Now, we've got the yellow signifiers around the badging, which tells us we have the quad motor. There's a dual motor and a quad motor. There are 3 different levels of battery, 105 kilowatt hours, 135 kilowatt hours, which this has, and the top is 180, but you can't combine the quad motor with the 180. So this is effectively the most powerful version with 835 horsepower. It's a pretty cool design, completely unique light sequence up at the front. We've got things like the charging flap here, which has a nice little twist to it as it opens up. If you come past the car, there are loads of clever things. For example, the gear tunnel that you have here, the storage that runs through behind the rear seats. At the back, just a press of the button and the tailgate pops on down. For $90,000, you get something that features a lot. There are charging ports. You can actually stand on this. So if you want to put stuff up on the roof, simple. This is made to hold your weight, nice and easy to get on up there. There's actually quite a lot of aero going on as well, with the spoiler over the top of the rear, even the cutaways that you have here behind the front wheels. There's a lot to it, and to show you inside as well, pop open the doors, we've got some nice big digital screens, of which I want to say some good things and some slightly frustrating things as well a little bit later on. But fundamentally, to make an electric car work, you need to have a charging infrastructure that's ready for it. And that's where this gets really, really difficult. Because to summarize the experience of even just yesterday, a 375-mile journey in this car, all the way from Monterey, coming down the end of car week to Los Angeles. Of course, we've got a range of just shy of 300 miles, but we didn't start completely full. It needed a charge or two along the way. Nav told us where to stop. Pull in at one, completely out of order. Pull in at another, start charging, and it's really slow, about 50 kilowatts instead of the maximum 250 from a pretty low battery. Pull in at another, the screens have been smashed and it's not working. Pull in at another, it's completely full before eventually charging, and again, it's only going at about 60, 70 kilowatts. Pull in at another, and we get a flawless experience. And that's one of the big problems, because yes, Tesla, we're going to get to that and the supercharger network, but you don't want to have to think, hey, I can go to a Shell, but I can't go to a Chevron or a Mobil. It doesn't work like that. You need it to work properly. Let's go for a drive and I'll talk a little bit more about this. You can tell immediately that this is a car very much set up for adventure. Now, there are a few different interior configurations, and I have to say in here, it looks really nice and smart. The finish of the dashboard, obviously the very big tablet display, which is where you have all of your controls, but super minimalistic, not overloaded with buttons and things to press, which is both a pro and a con. It keeps it looking really smart, but it makes it sometimes a little bit awkward to find what you need to do. Now in here, we've got the satellite view currently. This is very responsive, it all works super well. We've got the charging screen. You can see we've got 198 miles of range currently from 65% of the battery. You can open up the charging flap, you can set the charging limit, get your session details and a few other things in there. But for example, if I want to move the steering wheel, I can't just unleash a latch or find a control here. You have to go in the software to the steering wheel and then work it out from these toggles that you have on the front of the steering wheel exactly, see there, I've gone the wrong way, exactly where to do it. And once you know that's completely fine, If you don't know, there's a whole learning curve involved in figuring that out. Now, to set the navigation, and we've got the air conditioning blasting right now, apologies for that. Let's set it up to Monterey, where of course Car Week takes place, and you'll see this is pretty quick, very smooth, very efficient, and we've just done the reverse of this route, effectively coming down back in this direction. Once it's found your navigation and the optimum places to stop, you can see 3 charging stations along the way. That in theory is great, except that the navigation map itself is very unclear as to where exactly to go, sometimes to the wrong side of buildings, sometimes, well, you can't tell where you've been and where you're going, so the lines are the same color, and it doesn't know, obviously, if the chargers are actually working. And that's one of the big problems with this. You don't know that you're going to get the speed, or if they're going to be busy, or what it's going to be. And that's a mindset thing when you're driving in the car, right? That's a mindset to be prepared and to have a little bit more time. Now, simple, you just put your foot on the brake, do your seatbelt, and ready to go, and the car is instantly into drive, nice and simple. That side of things, super easy. Let's go drive. There are a lot of very, very helpful features in here. For example, the car has a built-in Wi-Fi hotspot, and I can tell you as a visitor, that kind of thing is super welcome. We have one pedal driving only, so you have to drive if you lift off the throttle with the car braking itself, which is fine once you've got used to it. And to be honest, it is much smoother than the one pedal driving in the little electric Abarth that I have at home. Of course, it's a big, heavy thing, and there's no disguising that. It's just over 3 tons, which is, I guess, what you'd expect with a big battery pack like you have in here. Swings and roundabouts when it comes to the size of the battery, right? Because on the one hand, it means you get more range. On the other hand, it means it's a bigger thing that you're carrying around everywhere that you go, and it takes significantly longer to get charged up. Once you're driving though, you have that effortlessness, that silence, that comfort that comes with a full electric vehicle, the nice raised up seating position, the fact that you're in a pickup, right, which is the car of America, the car that you find, or the type of car that you find pretty much everywhere around here. There's a very strange indicator blinker noise that you're probably hearing as we change lanes, which is quite unique, and also, I'm going to say, takes some getting used to. It's a quirky sound. As we are going to head out onto the freeway, this is where, if you were on a freeway that allowed it, a double tap down of here would turn on your automated driving, which I think it's actually allowing us to do here. You then have the adjustment of your cruise control with the right-hand side selector. Let's head on out and go give this a little test, because obviously this is one of the beauties of all the technology, the sensors, the cameras, everything that enables your driving experience to be super comfortable, super calm, super easy, really. It's a different type of thing. It's a totally different type of thing from the ground up. If you've never driven an electric car, there's an adaptation period when you get used to the mindset and the style and the characteristics and feel of the car. A little bit further along, I can turn this on now. There we go. Highway assist on. Stay attentive, of course, but this is where it's steering for me, keeping us in the lane, kind of doing everything. Obviously, keep your hands still on the wheel. I do need to comment, though, that I just slightly overrode it, so it cancels very, very quickly. But I do need to draw attention to the fact that even at 65 miles per hour, there's a lot of wind noise in here, a very high-pitched wind noise from both sides of the car that you are acutely aware of. There are tons of really cool things, by the way, like a speaker and a torch and all sorts of other adventure type things that I'm going to show you once we're pulled over. But I want to go to a charger to explain a little bit more about the problems I see here in California, especially with this state trying to lead almost the world. This state is basically trying to lead the world literally everywhere in terms of the move and shift towards electric vehicles. We're coming to some chargers here, not to charge up the car, but because this is where we did want to charge up the car on our run down from Monterey, and I want to talk about this problem a little bit more, and this seems like a pretty suitable place to do it for reasons you shall see in a second. We are here at this charging station, not thankfully because we need to charge up, but because this is where we had stopped on the way down from Monterey. A long day, we'd already been on the road for 7 or 8 hours and ran into this little pickle. Now you'll spot we've got 3 chargers here. There's one over at the background, but they all have the same problem. Screens completely off, no life from any of them. And then all of the card readers have been smashed up. This one, of course, a bit shattered. The one over here literally in pieces. Now I don't know which came first, chicken or the egg, whether this was somebody really angry because the machines were off so he decided to smash them, or somebody who just decided to smash them because they hate EVs maybe. I don't know what it might have been. But the problem is, if you arrive at a charging station like this and you've got no battery, you're down to your last 5 miles, what do you do? Where do you go? How do you fix that problem? You can't like walk to a gas station, get a jerry can and go fill up 5 litres or a gallon into your car. You're a bit stuck out in the open. Now, I don't want to get into a battle of this charging station or that one, different networks. A lot of people have said go to Electrify America, but those aren't necessarily on your route. This is what I said earlier. Let's say you were restricted to only going to one gas station, Shell. You can't use anything else. It's inconvenient, and this needs to be convenient to work. If it's not simple, if our parents or our grandparents can't understand it, how is this ever going to work? For example, here, I'm a tourist, right? I'm visiting somewhere far away from home. It's a press car in this case, but let's say you have a rental car, and you know all new cars will be rental cars down the line as well. You've never done this before. You need to figure this out. You don't have a home with a charger. You don't have a fast charger at home. You don't even have a garage. You're parking the car in a hotel car park that might have a couple of charging ports, but it probably doesn't have a whole lot. You need to depend on these kind of things. And at the moment, they're in awkward locations. Yes, some are getting better and better and popping up in the right places. But I had felt before trying to run an EV in California that California was going to be kind of the forefront of this and super easy. And Tesla we're going to get to, I promised. And the truth is, it's not. So much work needs to be done here. This state has a mandate that by 2035, you'll only be able to buy new vehicles that are full EV, zero emissions, no internal combustion engines. That's only just over a decade away. Just over a decade away. To think that there's such a big understanding shift, technology shift, infrastructure shift that's going to be needed to have any hope of that working. This is just one example. You don't know when you get to the charger how fast it's going to be, whether you're going to be there for 20 minutes or an hour. You don't know if they're going to be full. Sometimes you do, but sometimes it will tell you 2 of 6 machines are available. You get there, and that's because they're broken. Sometimes the thing just doesn't work at all. You can't even charge, and you have to go and find another one. You always have to factor in a buffer on your journey, and I want to make EV work. I try very hard. As I say, I've got an electric Abarth at home at the moment. I've got another electric car actually coming soon. First time I've said that on the channel at all. And I've had numerous other electric cars to date that I've driven, short-term, long-term, Taycan for 1.5 years, and have a bit of experience with this. And I'm fascinated that it still isn't better. Let's finally move on to the Tesla topic, because I know people who like Tesla really like Tesla, from the superchargers and the network to running a Tesla and how much easier it might be, to the future with brands like Rivian having access to the superchargers going forwards. Now on this car, as we showed up front, you have your CCS port. You've got the lower flap, plug it in, nice and easy, get the thing charging. Now, most of the time that's simple because it's just like this, right? You unlatch this thing, you pull it round, you try and avoid your paintwork to not damage anything, you force it in a little bit, plug it in, job done. Sometimes it can be really awkward and fiddly. The angle just isn't set up right. All the cars have plugs in different locations. It can be really quite difficult. Like, you need to be quite strong sometimes to actually plug it in, which is another problem. So Tesla superchargers. Obviously, Tesla is basically this charging company that happens to make cars. They have a very, very smooth system. There are lots more of them around, but even a quick search around here, and they're not convenient. They're not like easy to go to. And I can tell you from my own experience, I have been to a Tesla supercharger before that was also closed and completely out of action, and that is a problem as well. It's admittedly better than this because the whole system and network talks to itself and knows what's going on, knows where it's going to work and where it isn't, and they can calculate for that in the navigation systems, and you don't need to deal with different accounts to set up the machines. You just plug it in, it's on your car, and away you go. But that's the idea of a monopoly. That's not good for anybody at the end of the day. Buying a Tesla is great in many ways, but if you don't want a Tesla, if you don't want to drive a Tesla, if you want competition in the industry, that's where it's really difficult, and that's where this needs to work. For cars like this to work, this needs to work. This needs to be completely open and available to everybody. Yes, Tesla makes some great cars, right? The Model S and Model X Plaid, they have the Cybertruck, Roadster, things for the future that are really quite exciting, and they have the whole range, the Model 3, the Model Y, the Model S, the Model X. Lots of different cars, lots of different use cases, lots of different availability of those, different motor ranges, power ranges, battery ranges, lots of different things across the portfolio. But if you want something else, there's been this exciting news more recently that in the not very distant future, brands like Rivian will be able to have access to Tesla superchargers. So we're talking somewhere a year away. And we're talking cars like this not being fitted with the Tesla plug socket, the North American charging standard, NACS, until 2025. So you'll have to then deal with adapters and plugs. So it'll get better, but there's so much more that needs to be done to have all of these chargers available, to have a system that, like I said, people who are visiting and renting a car can understand it, so that people who haven't really got the same grasp of technology that you and I do, the fact that we're watching or filming a video and sharing it online, can understand how to use this. Early adopters will always be more enthusiastic, will always have a better understanding of the system, will always want to understand it more, and as a result of that, will put up with more struggles, will be happier accepting more difficulties to make it work, as we do. Lots of people out there who run electric cars will have the perfect system, perfect setup for them, short commutes, only drive it locally, can charge it at home, never any issues. But we're visiting, we don't have the accounts. If I need to make an account, I have to give it an American phone number. I don't have one of those, I can't do that, that's not easy. And then we're driving long distances. We've done nearly 1,000 miles with it. So we've had to use infrastructure on the go. And I think that's representative of a lot of people. If we just take a look around the car park right here, for example, where we are, okay, admittedly not in the most upmarket area, but could you imagine all of these cars being electric? I mean, the cars themselves that are here probably in general are less expensive than the entry price point of an EV, which is another very big point that seems to have been completely missed in the future of batteries. It's a really, really big topic, and I guess my purpose here is to say that I'm amazed more isn't being done. I completely understand the need, the shift, the requirements to go more into electric, to have more daily driven commuter vehicles being powered by, ideally, renewable energy sources. But I think that to make that happen, you can't just say it. Governors, politicians, whatever, can't just say, yeah, let's do it by 2035. It needs to be shown to be being done. Something more dramatic needs to happen. And I think it's a bit of a sad thing, really, that I can drive a car that's really well made like this in terms of the thought processes behind everything. And I want to touch on a few more things with the Rivian. And the biggest drawback is something that arguably is completely out of their control. And it's so far from being ready for mass adoption that I have no idea how, if California can't do this, how on earth is the rest of the United States or the rest of the world supposed to be able to make this work? We are back on the road through a tunnel. No revving going on in that tunnel. We've also got this set for another fast charger, so it prepares the battery in advance. But when you then get out onto a little open straight, let me slow it down just for a moment, there's nobody behind me, down to about 30 miles per hour, and then punch it, this thing is fast, really fast, and I've got to stop accelerating. Not that you can actually see that on the video, which is the thing with electric cars. You have no sense. You'll just have to believe me that this gets a 3+ ton pickup truck on the go, 2 speed limits, very quickly. One pro and one con right now. A pro, if you look here, it's very conservative on its estimate with the range. That was 120 miles that it thought we'd have when we got here earlier, and it's up to 123. A con though is it told us the wrong way to go. I happen to know that the charger is just here, and had we done what that said, we'd now be a little bit lost. And that's basically what I was getting at with the nav. It's a little bit confused sometimes, but actually the chargers are over there to our right. Do we have an available one? Yes, we do. So we're going to be all good for now. Let's head round, because we know these ones work, and obviously if we go to the charge screen now, we are down to 41%, and it'll be good to get this fully charged up while we go for a little bit of a lunch break. So we've got to work out which one to go into, which angle to go into to use it. This is the complicated, I guess this one's faster, and I need to go into it forwards. Okay, yep, nightmare, we need to turn around a bit. You need to know how to maneuver a car like this if you're going to make the decision to drive an EV and need to charge it up with public infrastructure. Otherwise, you're going to have a little bit of a problem, and that actually looks really narrow with the charging cable as it is. So I might even need to hop out and go and just adjust that so we can actually pull in. After the struggle of squeezing out, come around here and you'll see what I meant earlier about needing a bit of strength to plug it in. Sometimes, just because of the way the connectors are, you've actually got to basically yank the cable in order to be able to get it to the right angle and click it in, and that's obviously broken and lost its cover over the top. And you know, we're here where the weather is wonderful, but in many countries in the world, no covers. You're now dealing with this in the rain. Let me see if I can tap a card and pay, because this is another thing we noticed. If you need to use the chip and pin here, the angle with this on these machines, you can't plug it in, you can't put your card in. It just does not physically go. Like, I don't know how that was so badly designed, but hopefully we can just do it with a card, tap, and get it started. Case in point, look at this. Please plug in the connector. The charger cannot detect a vehicle is plugged in. Please plug in the available connector or unplug and replug. This is so complicated, and obviously I'm now squeezing through a tiny little space to try and work this out, to take it out, plug it back in again, and see if we can make this detect the car. No, it just says please plug in the connector. Not working. Fail. Fail. Absolute fail. And we literally have just used this. It's so unreliable. This network is so... Be calm. Be calm. And then my case in point about having to squeeze in, and you just have to press the door on the cables. There's no other way to do it. Squeeze. There we go. Not the easiest. Come around to this one. That doesn't look very on at the moment. Oh, this is a slow one as well, isn't it? No, this should be fast. But I don't think that's on. I think that might be completely defunct. Let's open this. I'm just going to plug it in anyway, and we'll see what it tells us. There we go, that's in. Step over the cables. No, this is totally off. Totally off. Totally and completely not working. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think I have summarized my opinion of charging in California. And as great as a car like this can be, and like I say, there are some more things to show you, until this is sorted out, until you can reliably turn up somewhere and charge up your car, fail. System does not work. It's a complete sham that this could be the norm from 2035. They've got no hope. We're giving this another go. In theory, there's a charger here. It's definitely not open yet. Well, on the navigation, there was a charger here. Are there others? There are some Tesla chargers, but we can't use those yet. And then there's one that's definitely not accessible. You can't write this stuff. You just... I know it's all off, isn't it? The screens are all off. You just can't... Like, you couldn't make it up how bad this is. How impossible this is. Clearly they're building something here, I don't know. These look like the boxes being delivered, ready to be installed. We're back at the previous one, having used about 5 miles of range in the process. The two cars that were here are still here, and we're just going to wait it out and hopefully get some food somewhere. But I think this is the stupidest example I could possibly have given of this whole system. That it's chaotic. It's so impossible to plan around this kind of thing. But what can you do? Just pull in until one of these becomes available. We're plugged in. This is actually the machine that we used beforehand, and it seems to be connecting. So we might be in luck right now. It's making the connection, matching voltage. Screen gives you a few updates. Another thing I want to point out though about these machines is that they never give you receipts. You have to sign up and do all sorts of things. I just want a piece of paper that says how much I spent. Look, we're charging. Finally, power is going up. 60, 70 odd kilowatts, 80, 90. That's actually decent. 100, 110. Obviously, when you're at a lower state of charge, you get a faster charging speed. It will always slow down when you get further through. The Rivian can do up to 250 kilowatts, but you normally want to run it quite low because that's when you're going to get the fastest power out. So we've got 166 kilowatts. That's not too bad. That will charge this up decently, but it does cost a lot. We don't have pricing information on screen right now, do we? I don't think I can bring up pricing information now that we've already started. No, just a different type of display. But it does end up costing you a lot. Like a full charge in this at one of these machines will be like $60, something like that, to go 250 odd miles. Adds up quite a lot, especially out here where gas prices are so much cheaper than we have back at home. Anyway, it's running. That's step one. This has been going at a pretty good pace. It's slowed down from 180 down to about 146 kilowatts at the moment, obviously because we've reached up to 63% now. I like how much data and stuff it shows you, but I do want to show you a little bit more through this and what that is, which is kind of funky as well that you have in here. So we have obviously nav, music, your driving controls. You can change between a host of different driving modes. You can also change the ride, regen, stability, ride height, and you can go in here and open up various parts. The front actually has quite a significant amount of storage space, which is quite convenient as well. You've also got cameras, take a full look around everything that's going on, plus you've got the other screens like energy, your gear guard, which is where you have the drive cam. So if you plug in a storage device, it can use the cameras that are built in as a dash cam, effectively recording what's going on, which is kind of fun. You've also got various camping settings. You can level it. If you're parked on an unusual slope, you can press level truck and it will make sure that it sits flat. If you go into settings, you've even got the hotspot, as I mentioned, and you've also got the dock. And at the press of a button, we can unlock that and it releases this, which is a portable travel speaker. So you are carrying around something that weighs a couple of kilos everywhere you go, but as you can hear, it actually works really well. This thing is very loud. We had a demo of it and it's quite impressive and fun and just shows you the adventurous nature of this. Slide it back in, lock it into place. This is the key. You can use the app as a key. You can have the physical key, which has this like climbing style latch, or there's also a credit card key as well, should you prefer. Just got that tucked in there. Charging pads, storage in here as well. Big storage bin, a couple of USB-C ports. The usual types of things you would like to have in something like this. And obviously it's quite a comfortable place to sit. I'm not gonna lie, the seats are good, steering wheel is nice and small, not an overly oversized grip as you often have on these types of things. There's something I want to show you outside though, so we're going to hop out and check this out. Outside the car, here you have, check this out, a torch. The Rivian comes with a torch in the door, which is quite fun. Obviously also charges itself back up when it's just in place, which is cool. In the back of this, in the flatbed, which I guess you could probably open from this, let me give it a go. Does that open it? There we go, magic. Inside here, this is the removable load shelf that we've had in for some luggage, but you do have in there your air compressor, which is obviously very helpful. Inflate your tires, anything you need to do with that. And on the other side, under the flap over there, is your normal mains power socket. If you want to make sure that any of your electronics are charged up. Then in the front of this, if you come around with me here, we have the front storage. Again, double press, this pops, goes all the way up. A load more storage. We've got some charging cables and latches and straps and things, and you can close this and have a flat floor in there, or obviously open it up and have even more space. I will point out, it's really hot in here. Anything you put in here is gonna get warm. So anything like makeup or food, not a good idea. That's gonna get very, very melted. This just closes down and it has soft close as well, so it tucks itself in, which is nice. So all around good quality, everything works pretty well. Got a nice view through the window right now as well if you want to see the charging state. 213 miles, plus not only that, but the light bars at the front and at the back of it actually blink as well. I don't know if you can see in the daylight, but in theory, this is not currently doing it. But normally when it's charging, that would be bright green all the way across. It has certainly been on previous tests, so I don't know what's going on right now. I guess we need to conclude something. This is now on 85%-ish charge, having cost me to go from 40-odd% to 85%, around $40-something. So it really is $60-70 if you're doing a 60-70% increase in your state of charge. We're going to unplug it soon and head on. The car is great, there's no question. For a first attempt, which is what this is, Rivian have done an amazing job. If you think about how hard it is to come to the market, to make something new, and to really try and tick every box without having things to rely on from the past, to start from a fresh sheet of paper, that's where this is so incredible, because it's super practical. There are loads of fun features and ideas. It looks pretty cool for what it is. It's distinct in its appearance with the shape of the headlights up front. And overall, it's a pretty good electric car. What it's let down by, though, is what's outside of Rivian's control. The charging infrastructure is a complete and utter mess. And there's so much work that needs to be done for everybody to be driving in these kinds of things. And I used the analogy earlier, right, of you don't want to have to, if you want it to work, it needs to be seamless. It needs to be that you just jump in the car and you start driving somewhere, off you go, and you charge up along the way and on to the next. Same as filling up a petrol car, right? If you want it to work for everyone, that's how it has to be. If you want it to work for enthusiasts, as it has done for the last 10 years, that's fine, because people will patiently go from one charger to the next, or they'll work out which ones are working and they'll use those. But if you want it to work for older people, for tourists, for people who have no experience before, this currently is nowhere nearly there, as I felt I experienced so much with the Taycan back then, and it's why I run a small electric city car at the moment in the Arbath, because I can charge it at home, range is less than 100 miles, but I only use it for short journeys, and I'm never going to take it for a long distance trek somewhere, so it doesn't matter that I have to depend upon infrastructure. And this clearly needs some work. For 2035 to happen, I don't think it's very realistic. I also don't think it's very realistic that the entire future is electric. I think there are plenty of situations where synthetic and e-fuels will be required, transport industry, there are just a whole host of different things. And it's a case of working out what that's going to be. Obviously, electric is great in some environments, and it's brilliant as a consumer to have the choice, to be able to pick between each one of these different means of transport and to go from there. I would like to say a huge thank you to Rivian for the opportunity to drive this and to get to know more about the car. Of course, at the moment, they are primarily here in the United States, in California. We don't yet have them in Europe, although no doubt a few of them have been exported around the world and are now in different homes. But for me to have been able to use it to transport our stuff around, because obviously the Zenvo has a little bit of a luggage issue and not quite as practical as this thing. And it's fun to drive, it's nice to drive, it's pleasant, it's calm. Yes, there's a bit of wind noise, and yes, the nav could be a little bit better, and there are plenty of things that I'm sure they'll improve in future generations as well. But the biggest thing that needs improving is the thing that they have no control over. The charging needs to get better. End of story. So thank you very much for joining me on this slightly more stressful than it was supposed to be day. I thought we'd go to one charger that was broken and then we'd come to another and it would all be fine and dandy, until it wasn't, and then the next one was also out of action, and then we did come back here and it was fine. Oh, what a day. It's a good one though, I'm not complaining. Out here in California, lovely weather, great car to drive, really nice thing. It's just a lot of work that needs to be done. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video in some form, even if it's enjoying my torture of not being able to get this car charged up. That's it for now though, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers.